Good morning, this is Marshall Davis. This episode is on the 29th saying of Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus said, "If the body came into being because of spirit, that is a marvel. But if the spirit came into being because of the body, that is a marvel of marvels. Yet I marvel at how this great wealth has come to dwell in this poverty." In this saying, Jesus is leading people beyond metaphysical and philosophical questions in order to point them to reality that is beyond ideas. It is common in religious and spiritual circles for people to be dogmatic about their views, and that is as true, it seems, in non-duality as it is in Christianity. I'm amazed at how dogmatic some proponents of non-duality can be. I have heard them referred to as the non-duality police. There's a sort of non-dual orthodoxy that people feel the need to defend. They say you have to hold the right views and express them in the right language, or it's not non-duality. I had one person say to me that I can't use Christian terms, but it's all right to use Hindu terms of Advaita or Vedanta to express non-duality. I can't use the word resurrection, but it's all right to talk about reincarnation. Why? It reminds me a lot of Christian fundamentalism, except these are non-duality fundamentalists. I'm criticized, therefore, by Christians and by non-dualists, even though I call my approach Christian non-duality. But that's all right. I've gotten used to being a heretic. Has there ever been a proclaimer of truth in the history of the world that has not been accused of heresy? Jesus pointed out that the religion that he was born into killed the prophets, and then, after they were dead, honored the prophets. That's true of every religion, it seems. Jesus was arrested and he was executed for being a heretic, as well as being a danger to the government, so I feel like I'm in good company. In the 29th saying in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus is talking about the relationship between matter and spirit. In philosophy, it's called the mind-body problem. In non-dual circles today, it is often expressed in terms of the relationship between consciousness and the physical world. Are we in the world, or is the world in us? Or is it both, or is there another option? Everyone has an opinion. Jesus here states two positions on the philosophical issue of his day. He says, if the body came into being because of spirit, that is a marvel. But if spirit came into being because of the body, that is a marvel of marvels. Jesus presents two options, but does not take sides. He transcends the dualism of these two opinions. He continues, "Yet I marvel at how this great wealth has come to dwell in this poverty." In this verse, in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus is addressing a subject that seems to have been discussed in this circle of disciples. Either that, or it was discussed in the Christian community that grew up around the Apostle Thomas, who wrote this Gospel, and then the community, of course, edited and preserved and transmitted the Gospel of Thomas. The issue was whether the body came into being because of the spirit or the other way around. Now just substitute the word consciousness for spirit and we have the same discussion today. It seems like every spiritual teacher in school of thought has an opinion on the matter. Jesus addresses it by saying, forget about that. Don't get caught up in such debates. Opinions are dangerous. They lead to debates and divisions, which lead to various schools of thought and branches of a spiritual tradition. That's why we have so many religions and so many branches within each religion. The dualistic mind grabs onto differences and splinters a religious tradition into factions. And in doing this, it misses the point. The mind thinks it knows what is true, but in actuality the mind cannot know truth. Opinions are illusions of the mind. Opinions on metaphysical matters seem important, but they are not helpful to spiritual awakening. They have the appearance of spiritual wisdom, but they are not wisdom. They are products of duality. That's why Jesus cuts right through this debate. He did not take sides on this issue of the relationship between body and spirit. He did not opine on the nature of the physical world and consciousness. Jesus says, if the body came into being because of spirit, that is a marvel, but if spirit came into being because of the body, that is a marvel of marvels. In other words, he's saying, regardless of how it came about, it's marvelous. Then Jesus says, yet I marvel at how this great wealth has come to dwell in this poverty. See what he's doing here? He focuses not on the differences, but on the great treasure that is here now. What he calls elsewhere the pearl of great price, or the treasure hidden in the field, or the coin lost in the house. Jesus' reply is the equivalent to the Buddha's famous parable of the poisoned arrow. One of the Buddha's followers came to the Buddha disturbed because after years of practice he was no closer to spiritual awakening. He was stuck on questions about the nature of existence. What is the nature of the universe? What is the nature of the self? What happens after death? The monk couldn't get his mind off such questions. One day he approaches the Buddha, and he told his master he wanted straight answers on these questions from him, or he was going to leave the Sangha. So the Buddha told him this parable. A man is shot by a poisoned arrow. He is taken to a physician who is ready to pull the arrow out and give him an antidote, but the man stops him. Not so fast. First, I need to know who shot me, and why did he shoot me? And what town or village did the shooter come from? I want to know what kind of wood the bow was made of, what kind of wood the arrow was made of, and who made them, and what kind of feathers provided the fletching, and on and on and on. There's an endless stream of questions that he wanted answers to. The Buddha said such a man will die from his wound, and his questions will remain unanswered. Don't worry about such matters. All that matters is you get the arrow out and are healed. The Buddha told his followers to stop getting bogged down in metaphysical questions. The Buddha was practical. All that mattered to him was how to wake up. And Jesus is saying the same thing. It doesn't matter which came first, the chicken or the egg. Just eat the egg. The relationship between the body and the spirit, which came first, does not matter. It does not matter if we can understand the nature and the origin of the universe. Those are sidetracks. The ego wants to lead us down such rabbit holes so it can remain in control, or at least pretend that is in control. And spiritual seekers get bogged down in all sorts of questions that do not matter. All that matters is how to wake up. All that matters is to find truth. And truth is not an idea or a doctrine or a belief. Truth is a reality that cannot be understood with the mind or put into words. Jesus says it doesn't matter if the body came into being because of spirit or the spirit came into being because of body. What matters is that it's marvelous. The greatest marvel is the situation we're in right now. And the greatest marvel of all is that the treasure of spiritual awareness is right here in the midst of all of this. What matters is that there is great spiritual wealth right here in the midst of the poverty, he calls it, of human existence. Discover that wealth. Find the pearl of great price. Find the buried treasure. Find the kingdom of God. There are always going to be folks who would rather talk and argue and discuss and search endlessly rather than find. They want to argue over ideas and the wording of ideas. There are people like this in Christianity. I've known them all my life. And there are people like this in Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism and non-duality. Truth is not an idea. It's not a philosophy. It is reality. There are always going to be enforcers of orthodoxy, including non-dual orthodoxy. It is best to ignore these self-appointed guardians. All that matters is that we know reality firsthand. All that matters is that we wake up to this divine reality that Jesus called the kingdom of heaven. And that is it for today. Grace and peace to you.